Go Heidi.
It's on my,
Let me just toss it to you. Heidi, are you ready?
yep,
Sharon? Della?
yep.
Don?
Yes.
All right, so we'll call this meeting to order at 10:30 a.m. And roll call when ready, please.
Boss here, Bennett,
Here,
Glenn,
Here.
Von,
here.
Here. Changes to the agenda. Don, it looks like you have a couple of ads.
Yeah, I thought it goes into the number 2 item.
The
progress.
the
Parks and Rec.
so you want to log on without computer audio, sure.
Down closing.
So which one do you want first, Girl Scouts or
Well, let's knock out the AED one
AED?
and then the Girl Scouts. And then I wanted just to have a quick kind of update on the electrical system at the park.
All right. Anything else? Is that good with the board?
Thank you.
Cheryl?
Sure.
Okay. So, that brings us
Let me
to,
just add it as.
well, this would probably be, 2A would be the AED. 2B would be the Girl Scouts. And 2C would be the electric system. Any conflict of interest this morning?
Motion done, Sharon.
And how about public comment? Anyone here in the hall wishing to make public comment?
Line of public comments. I'm Randy Melnick, as you know, 9304 Wheeler Oaks. Not sure if I'll have an opportunity to talk about any of the agenda items, so I thought I would just address a couple points. As a public comment, I'd like to direct the attention to the board packet and the 3 issues that are specifically talked there. Regarding the contract with Networks Northwest for the survey tabulation, you know, it's been a month since the surveys were returned from residents and they're still sitting there. I don't really understand the confusion about the contract or the approval of the contract with Networks Northwest. The highlighted section in the minutes that's in your packet indicates approval of up to $5,000. If you put the 2 numbers together, the 800 to put the survey online and the $2,400 to tabulate them, it's $3,200, well below 5,000. With regard to the RFP for community facilitation, I've tried to locate the township's procurement policy and had sort of mixed success. Don gave me a copy of a couple pages of it just recently, but I think it speaks to the fact that there aren't any real clear procedures for doing this sort of thing. I see words like current practice and protocols, but I don't see anything written or formalized. I also want to point out that there's a difference between an RFP and a contract. An RFP is common in the consulting world where you get a request for a proposal. The community tells you its issues, what it's trying to accomplish, and then you respond with your qualifications and approach and a budget and a scope and all those sorts of things. Once you select one of those, then you go to a contract and actually prepare the contract. The RFP that was done from the Planning Commission includes a response date that would be in time for putting that in the board packet so the board could see the responses as well. I think the thing that was concerning most to me is the discussion about the master plan budget. The memo suggests the desire of the Planning Commission to be reckless in spending, and I don't find that to be the case. Numbers may have been mentioned in passing, but I don't recall anything at any meeting with any substantive discussion about $100,000 or $50,000 budgets. The only scope of services that we have for going through the master plan is the one I produced last fall. I've been a consultant for about 30 years, and communities rarely spend $100,000 on a master plan, especially in a community this size. It would be Traverse City probably is, but maybe some other larger townships, but not something like Whitewater. In two places, the memo talks about a 5-year rewrite as if to diminish what we're doing. It's actually just about a 10-year update. It's in 18 months, it'll be 2025. And the master plan was done in 2015. So it's been almost 10 years since the last master plan was done. And I just want to kind of recap where we are with the funding of the master plan and what's been spent. The master plan started substantially in October. And in the last 9 months, I've been paid $7,000 to prepare for all the work that's been done to this point. That includes the 4 chapters that are on the website that are being reviewed, as well as work with the ROS, helping put the survey together, all of that. If you add that together with what Networks Northwest is looking at, you're probably about $12,000 into the master plan right now. And I would say that you're probably a third to a half done. We don't really know completely all the steps in the second part of this because of the need to have these workshops, and they may be maybe compressed or expanded slightly. But I think in my estimation, you've gotten a bargain for where you're at right now. And I'm also just finally in closing, just a little concerned about the progress in the meeting of the 17th, May 17th. I think the Planning Commission and the town board came away with optimism and enthusiasm about the future and how we're taking steps forward. And I hope that's not diminished. So I'll be here for questions if you have any. I don't have like 3 minutes, so I want to respect that. But
Thank you.
thank you.
Anyone else in the township hall? Anyone out in Zoom land wishing to make a public comment? Good morning, Connie.
Good morning, Penny Highmore, Beggs Road. So my comment concerns the property at 6631 Beggs Road that the board deemed not buildable on May 3rd, 2023. From that meeting, I quote, based on the findings of fact, we find parcel 28-13-136-001-02 non-compliant with Whitewater Township General Ordinance number 26, Amendment 3, effective 3/19/2011, specifically Section D, 7D, and is not eligible for any building permits or zoning approvals such as special land use approval or site plan approval. I know this is not a subject on today's agenda, but we will continue to use these public comment opportunities in hopes that members of the board, the zoning administrator, and the ZBA will read General Ordinance 26, Section 9, Paragraph A, that states, any such parcel shall also be designated as not buildable in the township records and shall not thereafter be the subject of a request to the zoning board of appeals for variance relief from the applicable lot and or area requirements, and shall not be developed with any building or above ground structure exceed 4 feet in height. How is this being sent to the ZBA? General Ordinance 26 clearly states, and shall not thereafter be subject of a request to the Zoning Board of Appeals for variance relief. Help the residents of this community understand why the board went into closed session on this subject, came out of closed session and voted 4-1 to send this to the ZBA. Please share the reasoning for this decision with the taxpayers, why you would vote against the laws written for the township. Please correct this error. The appointed members of the Zoning Board of Appeals should not be put in this awkward, inappropriate position. Also, if you allow this travesty to continue, how will the zoning administrator, Bob Hall, be allowed to present this case to the ZBA when he is the one who, by his own admission, made this error? Where is the logic here? I'm asking you to fix this. If you continue on this path, bring in an educated zoning administrator to bring this case erroneously to the ZBA. Thank you.
Good morning, Vicky.
Good morning. My comment will start out ditto. Absolutely everything that Connie just said. I know it's not on the agenda today, but it is coming down the on the calendar in August. And I'm not even really sure why it's in front of the ZBA when the board had voted already. So I agree. We need some clarification on that. As far as the what's on the agenda today, full disclosure, I happen to be part of the ROS, and I'm very proud of what the group has done in giving guidance to the planning committee on getting the survey out. I think everybody in the township should be very proud of the number of surveys that have been received as a result of what I think was a great survey, both being mailed out and also the ability to do it online. Randy has already mentioned that these surveys have been in possession for about a month now, and nothing has gone on. I was under the impression that we had been given a budget, and I'm not even really sure why we're having to come back to ask for permission for this bill to be paid. Let's get on with it. The township residents have a right to hear the results, and let us continue to work on getting workshops together so that we can start bringing this township forward in the way that all of the taxpayers will be able to hear their voice. Thank you.
I see no other hands up in Zoom. So we will move into business item number 1. Review approved Networks Northwest contract number 1730.
I have a motion.
Okay.
Motion to approve Networks Northwest contract 1730 in the amount of $2,415 for project deliverables as described in attachment A, with amendment of commencement and completion dates in paragraph 2 as agreed to by Networks Northwest.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Can start if you, I've got a couple questions. Yeah. Yep. At least this time we've had an opportunity to look at this contract. I'm sorry, what did you say? At least we've had an opportunity to look at this contract. Okay. Some time to digest it and go through it. 2 questions come to mind, or 2 things with the contract. And kind of fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. On page 1, excuse me, get to the right page here. Page 9 of the packet. There is
a stipulation that all powers not explicitly vested in the township shall remain with NN, which is Networks Northwest. That is a very, very broad statement that says, rather than listing any identifiable potential problems that might arise, that anything that comes up in question, it defaults to NN. I'm not sure, but it's necessary to have that statement. I would like to see it deleted. And then the biggest is the indemnification. The fact that we're giving them a blanket waiver on any possible potential issue that might come up, whether they do it negligently, willfully, any conduct. It's such an overreach and such a heavy-handed. Again, I would say the solution to that is just strip the indemnification section out of that contract. Deleting those two things tends to makes the contract a little more palatable to me. I know I've read a lot of correspondence, I've heard some comments. We had expected out of that 5/17 meeting to have a contract in front of us for the board at 6/13 meeting for review. And then, now we're having a special meeting to discuss it, which is, a month later. So I'm not going to go back and I think this has been hanging out there. I agree, but I'm not entirely convinced that this is entirely the board's fault. So I have two issues with the contract, and I think the solution is to delete those two items, but I'm willing to listen to my colleagues on their thoughts on the matter. Anyone else?
Well, I don't have a problem with either of those things. I think possibly, although I haven't looked, that the all powers language was in the prior Networks Northwest contract. And I believe the indemnification might have been too. I'm not too sure about that, but in any event, Networks Northwest has been around for a very long time. They are a well-trusted community partner, and to, I believe, 10 counties and the municipalities within those counties. And I don't think that there's anything that merits changing anything in this contract. And I would just add that the board certainly, let me just address one other thing Don said, and that was perhaps I don't remember the specific statement, but I don't remember it being made that we were going to have a contract at our 6/13 meeting. I don't remember that statement, so I wasn't, the fact that we didn't have one, I don't think is a problem. I think what is the problem is that we have a policy. We've had a policy that, contracts need to go to the attorney and, they've got to be signed by a certain person, which certainly is not the case. Anybody can be given the authority to sign a contract. And I think our policy needs to change in the circumstances of what I call these low dollar amount, short shelf life contracts. This contract is only for an amount of $2,415, and the completion and the commencement and completion dates in this contract, although they need to be revised, as my motion indicated, but it's a 2-week period. This isn't a contract that's going to survive even this fiscal year. And so I really think we need something, because we brought this on ourselves, this special meeting. The board has brought this on themselves with their policy, that policy. And in no instance do I believe that we need to send this off to the attorney and spend $500, or whatever it would be to get this reviewed. It's a very simple, straightforward contract. One I'm sure that Networks Northwest signs with many, many other municipalities, and I just think we just need to get it approved so they can get on with the work of getting this master plan survey tabulated.
Heidi?
I don't really think the indemnification is an issue on this because it's basically probably just saying if don't hold us liable if we lose a survey or, I mean, all they're doing is tallying it and they're a third party entity. And this contract goes away pretty quickly. I need something else done. If this was a longer contract, I'd have a problem with removing it, but it's such a short contract and by the time you blink, these people are gonna be done and we need to get this done so that we can move forward and produce another 4 chapters of the master plan. But I'm not an attorney, so I'm not gonna pretend to be one, but those are my comments.
Donna?
The indemnification thing, I think is pretty boilerplate. It's something that I'm sure they use in everything. If it was, if there was a lot of physical work that was gonna have to happen, let's say they're doing construction on this building or something, and there's more chance for somebody to become injured or something, I could see leaving that in, but we're talking about paper surveys that they're going to be entering into a computer system. If they lose, like Heidi said, they lose a survey or damage one or something, we're not going to hold them liable for something like that. So I think in the contents of what it is they're doing for the township, I don't have any worries about leaving that in. And for some reason, it's probably just a boilerplate thing they put in all their contracts. You know, the other issue that Cheryl brought up, I think, is a housekeeping thing that we need to address as a board on how we handle contracts of a certain dollar amount of a certain time frame. Because I agree, I think Sue Melnick sent in an email saying that, you know, sending a contract of this size to an attorney, which has always been our thing, you know, if we have a contract, we send it to the attorneys, is really a waste of money. If it's something as low level as this, I don't think we need to spend the money on going to an attorney, but we don't have an internal process that says, okay, like we do with our purchase orders, up to this amount, the board just approves it, we do the look-see, we make the changes and move on. I think that is something we need to address. As of what we're talking about today, I don't have a problem with this contract. It's pretty straightforward. The dates do need to be changed, and attachment A, we have a few more than 483. We got at least 486. I don't know if you need to change that. But other than that, I don't have a problem with this contract. Sorry, I was very long-winded about that.
Whatever it. So. You think it's more than 483? Is that?
Yeah,
the
we have
idea?
3 more sitting back there right now that came in the mail.
So,
They're still coming in, and I've just been giving them, stamping them when they came in and giving them to Rod, but Rod brought back the surveys today. They're sitting in a box.
Okay.
And I'm just gonna add those 3s to it. So I know add 3 more to that.
well, my comments are, Don, I didn't pick up on number 2, but certainly indemnification. I don't believe the township has ever signed an agreement that says we will defend a vendor for willful misconduct. So, in future agreements, I'm not going to do it. But I also can appreciate your opinions about the length of this contract, right? So my way around this was to just send a termination notice after the work was done.
And so then there was no question about the termination of the indemnification. So it's a, like you said, a very small period of time.
Yep.
And then the work scope, like you say, is mainly, I'll say clerical.
Yeah,
Right.
data entry.
Yeah, they're not going to be dealing with the public or anything like that. Certainly no manual labor. So that does reduce the risk. I certainly appreciate that. And to address the attorney question, the board has always looked at items like this and decided on a case-by-case basis. You know, I would not necessarily send this to the attorney. But in the past, we have generally had this discussion at this time. It's also important to note that, I don't know, maybe on Monday or Tuesday, I did provide the board with the option of whoever signed the last agreement to sign it, to sign this one. And so whoever you decided at 5:17 to have signed this agreement, certainly if that was the determination at 5:17, this meeting would not have taken place. But here we are. So I don't know what took place on 5:17, but clearly, a group of people think you approved a $5,000 expenditure. I don't know how that happened. And even if you did, fine, not a problem. But I would sure like to avoid this misunderstanding in the future. Roll call
So
when ready.
hold it, can I just ask one question? You made a comment, so you're saying that is that part of the motion, or would that be part of the motion, or is that a statement that the board agrees with, or in consensus that that sending a termination letter effective basically right after the work's completed, so that we can remove ourselves from any potential future, and I can't imagine what that is, but basically cease that clause with a termination letter. Is that what you're proposing? Or
Well,
what, is that what you're suggesting?
that was my thought around it. But as Cheryl and Ardella indicated, this agreement is supposed to end, I think, on July 24.
But those dates are being changed, aren't they?
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, because it says the commencement was July 10th and
Right.
today is July 18th, so I'm sure that they're not going to get it done in the next 6 days.
Right, and
So that-
basically, if we just change them to 14 days, like what they've got here.
So in essence, you're backdating everything 8 days. So you're looking at July
I don't
18th.
think we're backdating anything.
Oh, no,
I
I'm
think-
sorry, poor choice of words. We're going to change the effective dates from July 10th to July 18th. And then allow for the same period of time for survey
I
processing.
think that's a dangerous thing to do. My motion said with amendment of commencement and completion dates in paragraph 2, as agreed to by Networks Northwest. I don't know that Networks Northwest, even if they're get a phone call and a signed contract is faxed over, that they can start this today. I don't think any of us should assume that. I think they're going to need to supply some new dates. I think our job here is just to get this approved so this work can get done. And certainly, the minutes of 5:17, when there was talk about the $5,000, the board said they wanted more information. So we didn't approve that on 5:17 from my reading of the minutes. And that's one of the reasons it's here now. I've already prepared the purchase order, given it to Ron. I haven't seen it since. This really is.
It's signed. I signed it the day I got it,
Okay, well, I would like to have it back
but
then. so
well,
can-
I was waiting for the signed agreement.
Well, it
because-
doesn't, they're separate items, okay, so anyways, we're approving the amount in this motion if it passes anyways, so that would make your signature moot. But if you've already signed it, that's great. I need to have that back, the original. But anyways, I think Networks Northwest can simply maybe Randy or somebody, I don't want to really volunteer anybody, but could just call Networks Northwest and say, hey, we were just able to meet today on this contract, and could you give us 2 new dates? Those get plugged into the contract, and then whatever those dates are, I don't really care what those dates are. I think they will get to it as soon as they can, and I think we can approve it without those dates in there. And
Well, they have a 14-day turnaround there, Cheryl, so.
yeah, that's right.
Even if we put in today's date, but we make it instead of July 24th, we made it August 24th, that's giving them more than 14 days. So I would think that they'd be fine with those dates. And if
You don't
not,
need to
they'll
go
let
to
us know.
August, do you? You don't need to go to August, do you? No, it was, I thought it was July 26th. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, that's if it started on July 10th though. And it didn't.
Oh, yeah, it's the 17th, so.
Yeah, you gotta
okay.
give them more time than that. I'm just saying, rather than hold anything up, if that's gonna hold something up, I'd rather just plug the dates in and with an agreement that if it's gonna take them longer, they'll let us know.
Well, if we said the 18th to August 24th, that's about 5 weeks, so I'm sure they're not gonna probably take that much time
Right.
to.
We don't
get
wanna
that
give them
done.
that
And then
much,
we
do we?
wouldn't have to call them and get other dates and have that.
I think they're
delayed.
probably gonna stick to the same timeline of 14 days.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not August 24th.
So
Let's
I-
go 14
I
days.
I
from
like the
August,
idea
July
of giving them the same time window of 14 days.
Okay.
And whether or not they start on July 18th is immaterial to us. We didn't know that they would have started on July 10, because to my knowledge, July 10 is when the planning commission received this proposal back. That's the first time I heard about it. So, you know, whether or not we put the 18th in there and then 14 days afterwards,
Maybe or August 7th then.
August 7th.
And if they have a problem with that, they'll let us know.
So the commencement is 7/18.
Yep.
And what's the completion date? Yeah.
31 days of July, so it's August 7th.
That keeps us on the right track, right, Randy?
August 7th isn't on a weekend or anything, is it?
Well, I don't think they've made any reference. I mean, they just put a 2-week period in there, and that's all I suggested in there.
And I guess I want to add, to the motion, and, and to authorize the supervisor or clerk to sign the contract.
I'm okay with that.
No, I think, oh yeah, that's right, you did,
And Heidi seconded it.
yeah, thank you.
And the 24th was a Monday, Ardella, and the 7th is a Monday. So.
Consistent.
So we're good. It's the
Consistent.
same dates.
Mhm. Roll call when ready.
Bauman,
Yes.
Denick,
Yes.
Pop,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
yes.
So, Tom McElway has asked me to call him as soon as this was signed. And so he can pick it up and hand deliver the,
Are you changing the
documents.
dates manually then?
Yeah, that's what I did. I just did a strike
Well,
through
I
there.
need a copy of that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, that we would
Paper
keep
copy.
this copy. And then we would send Tom with the
Contract.
copy of the
consideration.
purchase order and a copy of the agreement. So would the board give me the opportunity to do that, or do you just want to continue with our meeting?
Are you talking like a 10 and 15-minute
Probably
recess?
10 minutes, I would say.
I'm agreeable.
I don't know that it's necessary. I hope the rest of this meeting doesn't take all that long, quite frankly, but. We don't generally interrupt our business items for that type of thing.
Yep.
As long as it's done directly after the meeting.
Okay. The RFP, communication for facilitation. We've heard public comment about what it's designed to do, and I totally agree. My thought is that we currently have a board approval necessary for any contract or agreement. If that doesn't get changed, if it does get changed, all I'm recommending is that in your RFP, it could even be supplementive, right? Just ask the vendors for a proposed sample agreement. That way it can come to the board. The board can say, ah, well, you know, this date doesn't work, or whatever the board's going to do. And at least we see it. You know, no offense, but your RFP was handed out to the planning commission at the planning commission meeting. I'm not sure anyone was given time to read it.
We read it at the meeting.
Yep, it was read at the meeting. Yep. But sometimes people require more time,
I get it.
right? So I'm just trying to avoid this situation in August, because I already see it happening. And so board,
Sure,
Yes.
please.
So the RFP was one page and it was discussed at the meeting. It was also discussed at the ROS committee, and it had been discussed in previous meetings as well about the content and the approach. So it was an effort to try to, I mean, it's a small amount of money comparatively in the consulting world. So to go through a large 15-page RFP would be crazy. So it's very simple, very straightforward, an idea to get an idea of who might be out there and available to help us with this. There was a strong sense from both the Planning Commission and the ROS that an outside vendor could help move the process along, give it additional credibility, kind of insulate the township a little bit from
Bias.
problems that might occur, you know, I mean, I guess I don't expect any, but, you know, that's the thinking there. So getting an RFP is fairly common, routine, but we can send an addendum and ask them for a sample contract if we like. I don't see a problem with that.
I think it's an easy Band-Aid to just ward off any other concerns that could pop up in August. Or, I mean, I don't want to be the only one.
No,
here,
I agree.
Right?
I would
Show me the contracts from 5/17, somebody show me them. Because the public cannot find them. I can't find them. That's contract, not RFP.
Well,
Again,
what-
I s-
But so was 3 agenda items that Don Glenn wants to talk about today that weren't provided. I haven't read any of it because I just got it. And so this kind of thing comes up. And the Networks Northwest contract, certainly if, you know, we had, the Zoom thing going, somebody could have shared screen and, they could have shared screen and the public could have seen it or whatever, but that's what happens at
It does.
meetings, and you're not gonna always be able to control that. And I don't think it makes the planning commission's process any less valid. And could they have asked for a sample contract? Sure. But, I
So-
mean, I think they can go out for their RFPs.
Not saying that they can't, but what's wrong with just making that request and trying to get it
There's
before?
nothing
it-
wrong with it, except that I think that you're gonna get a sample back. And so that's gonna be the start where you start. That's not necessarily where you end up. In terms of if they give you a sample contract, you've got to plug in the work scope, you've got to plug in dates, you got to plug in dollar amounts. So that's really how the consulting world works. I've spent 27 years in it. You do a proposal, you get a contract, you negotiate the contract, you sign it, you reference the proposal, and you get busy.
So just to be clear then. On August 8th. You are not expecting the board to approve whatever comes back on the RFP and execute it on August 8th.
I don't think we're counting on that.
I just want to make sure,
Yeah.
because
If we
that's
could
what's
get
in
there-
my mind,
If we can get
right?
there, great, but I'm.
I don't think we'll get there
Right.
personally, but
The concern was, again, the way the calendars are falling, we wanted to get the response in time so that you and the planning commission are seeing what responses we get back. The planning commission will meet first, they'll look at it and then make a recommendation likely to the township board and say, this is the firm we want. This is the qualifications that they have. This is how it aligns to what we need. We'll put a contract together. It would likely be at your next meeting.
Okay,
Early
so that's
September.
September,
Right.
right? Okay, so that's a completely different expectation than I left from the PC meeting on the 12th. I felt that the board would be asked to approve whatever come back in the RFP on August
I think that would
8th.
be great, but I don't think that was
I don't think we're gonna
expected.
get them all back, Ron.
Okay, all right.
We may
a
have
lot
to
of
extend it
time.
too. I'm hearing that a lot of firms are busy right now. There's a lot of places trying to do master plans. We've reached out to 5 and already several have said they're too busy. I mean,
So we went from
that's the world
5
we
to
live in,
what we
Yeah,
have
it
two.
is.
you
We
know.
went. That was our goal. 5, maybe we get to.
That's the way that works.
Yeah.
In other ways, in other.
Board, another member had his hand up. I don't know if he has questions or not. Are you interested in hearing them?
I would.
Go ahead.
Rod, do you still have a question or comment?
A comment. The fact that now I feel you're holding us to board dates. And we're on I shouldn't say we, the PC, the ROS is on a journey trying to put this project together piece by piece. And we're asking vendors, perhaps multiple vendors, different vendors, to step in and to help us move this forward. As a citizen, I think what you just said, Ron,
Yeah.
August 8th is just a bad idea. You have the opportunity as a board to call a special meeting. The fact that you're trying to make us thread something that we don't know we're going to be able to pull off and have an agreement in front of this board on August 8th, and you're talking as if you want a guarantee. I think that's really bad business. The fact that you can pull together a meeting for an hour, the 5 of you, why not consider that as an option? You know that we're on a fast path. You know that this group is working hard. Don't put more barriers. That's what we're talking about, is barriers. We're trying to do our part, collect the data, bring the vendors in, move this forward. That's all we've asked. You guys do the contracts, you do the purchase orders, but be there when it's time to execute. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I need to respond to that. I'm sorry. Please, okay, by me. No part of my conversation included a delay, Rod. I'm sorry. That is a fictional thing. My thought process was after the PC meeting that you guys wanted to have this ready for our next board meeting and have it approved. If it comes in later, certainly. I don't see why we wouldn't do a special meeting.
Well, thank you for saying that, because I did not hear that in your comment. I heard August 8th board meeting. That's the way this thing has been running in the last couple months. I don't feel that flexibility that the board seemed to indicate back on May 17th exists. And that seems to be more of a Ron Pop thing. Sorry.
I see. Okay, well, I'm glad we have it corrected now, because again, as I stated back on Tuesday, whoever signed the agreement on May 17th had the ability to sign this agreement. But you know what? They didn't do it.
And that's totally incorrect. I
yeah.
did not, I signed that agreement, but it was with board authority to do so. So that's an incorrect statement.
But that's the point.
That's a misstatement. You're trying to say, oh, well, we didn't need to have this meeting. They could have signed it. No, well, then you could have signed it. Any board member could have signed it under those circumstances. No, it's always been that, you know, the board has given approval to sign contracts, and that's my point, that these low dollar amount, short shelf life contracts probably don't need board approval, because it's just a very specific thing that is not going to take that long to do. And that's the reason for having a meeting, is because we have bad policy in place. And so, no, there was no authority. And you saying that the person who signed the other contract had signed this one, that's not board authority.
But the understanding, at least what I got back from the multiple PC members that called me after the meeting of the 10th between you and Rod, felt that it was just a purchase order that needed to be signed, and you and I had the authority to do that, which we do. And we can spend up to $5,000 with our two signatures, but it was the agreement that needed the board approval. And
Exactly.
so
Exactly. We're not here on the
If-
purchase order.
if,
The purchase order, you've already signed it, and the board's already just approved the amount. So if you hadn't already signed it, you wouldn't even need to sign it. That's the policy. We're only here because we have a policy that the board has to give approval for any board member to sign a contract. And so that policy, I was not going to violate that policy, and you suggesting that I could have done that is a total misstatement and miscommunication. And I think intentionally trying to mislead the public and the planning commission.
but at the planning commission, as they felt, Cheryl, this was approved at 517.
I don't care what the
Randy-
planning commission.
Randy
felt.
said it
was not
himself.
approved on 517.
He felt it was approved on 517, and that's the information I heard.
What a planning commission member feels is not pertinent. What do the minutes say?
I
What's
agree.
the action that was taken. So let's get away from emotions and feelings, and
And
let's
let's
get
put it
down
in
to
the
facts.
context of the minutes. Lois takes very good minutes.
Yeah,
But there, if you do read it, the context let's just get this, let's
Yeah.
Fact
pick,
is, there was no
let's-
specific motion.
Correct.
Or a vote, and that is what the minutes reflect. There was not a specific motion and vote, which would have been required to approve the 5,000, and the board members that were present, the 4 board members that were present, said they wanted more information, more detail. Now we have it, let's move on.
And that's what I gleaned from the minutes.
And, you know, and now, because of the delay here in getting this contract signed, they're not even gonna have the survey results until August 7th. So, you know, I don't see how they're probably going to, I mean, they're very hardworking planning commission. I don't see how they're probably gonna have a contract for these visioning planning sessions approved as a result of their RF, or ready to go for the board by August 8th. And so it'll be at another meeting. Whether we call a special meeting, I'd like to think it wouldn't get pushed off till September, but you know, I think we beat this up pretty good and we can move on.
Okay,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but could Cheryl check her microphone?
Well, Connie, no one turned on the sound, so we don't have, the amp is not.
Everyone else's is working.
I'm sorry, somebody turned off my mic.
Thank
Can
you. I can now, thank you.
No, people shouldn't be turning off mics. They stay on. Anyways. I have a lot to get done today, so if we could please move this meeting along.
I just want a clarification, so I got this straight to take this back to the PC. $5,000, 2 signatures, clerk and supervisor, must have 2 signatures. And we send 500, it's $500 to send case by case to the attorney, correct?
No,
no,
that's not what we said.
Okay,
$5,000, 2 signatures is correct.
and so,
1,000 is 1 signature
On a PO,
on a purchase order. We're talking purchase order.
not a contract. And-
that's right.
And that's, I think, where things got
I'm trying to.
misunderstood. I
write
don't know
this
how
out.
else to say it.
I get it, and I'm trying to put it in the right context, so when I go back to the plan commission, I have it verbatim. Cheryl, could you just do me one favor and send me an electronic updated copy of, I know it's not called the P&P manual, but the policy manual, please? So that I can go through it and write out what the PC is questioning, so they can read it themselves. Because I think there's a context turn here, and I want the context to stop. I want them to have the pure facts.
But Heidi, as we've discussed here today, our policy to review all contracts is really a board consensus. It's not in the policy and procedure
Okay.
No,
manual.
it isn't.
And so I don't know what put us on that path, but it was quite a while ago. Don't you agree, Cheryl?
I think back in 2012.
And that's when I believe, since I've been on the board, that's what we've been doing.
Sure.
So.
And so this is,
In transparency wise, we wanted to make sure that what we were doing was in the public eye, and that,
yeah,
you know, and we set a standard. We could actually put that in the P&P manual, just so that future boards
we
know.
could.
Well, we didn't. If they don't like it, they can change it, but
Sure.
that way we can say we're following what's in the P&P.
So this is
And-
just
and that's
something
kind-
you set a precedent, so you've been doing.
And that's kind of what I wrote in my memo, right? I think that when the dust settles on this particular agreement, that we do include it in the policy and procedure manual. I mean, I gave an example that we just send a list, right? But a list doesn't document things for people that follow us.
Right.
So I think that's a business item all in itself.
It's separate from today.
So does anybody think that if we gave each member of the PC a copy of this book to read, that they wouldn't get anything from it? So we don't want to give it to them? Is that the problem here?
That's not the problem. That's
Okay.
just a different subject.
Okay,
No, Heidi,
I get what
From
you're
what-
saying. Some's in it, some's not. So,
well, from what I heard you say, it promulgates the issue at hand. Cheryl can sign it, I can sign it, poof, all done. But when there's a contract or an agreement attached to that, Rod used at the meeting, Rod used the example of purchasing lawn chairs. If you're going to purchase lawn chairs, there's no agreement attached to it. It's just an out and out purchase.
but it's government, you still need a PO.
Well, yes, yes, and that
But when you're
is,
purchasing services, that's different than physical products.
it is. We have always had professional service agreements, and this is nothing new. So,
Okay,
And in the meeting minutes item. For
I
anybody,
know what it says.
yeah, for anybody that has a question on signing POs, it's listed out there.
It's,
for you
yeah,
to-
it's up at the top.
Yeah,
I mean,
it
we
is.
went through it, we discussed it. I just thought that maybe if they had a copy of the book, that they might understand the difference between government land and CEO land, but okay. I'll just FOIA another one. If I can't get a current copy, I'll just FOIA another one. It's not a problem.
and so I think part of this particular business item is the last paragraph on page 13. Della, you've already hit on it. Some sort of checklist, put it in the PNP manual, so there is a hard copy of it. Is that something that I should bring back to the board as a business item?
I would think so.
I would like to second
I
that.
mean, just the fact that you said, it's been in place since 2012, right? I mean, I would have never known that. I would have been looking through documents.
It's not written.
Not
Right,
really.
right, just
Unwritten
consensus.
practice of the board.
Yeah, so yes, I think it should go in the BMP manual. And to your point, if future boards don't want to do that, they have the right to change it.
Right.
So, but I think we should memorialize what the current consensus is.
Clears up any future questions.
So I don't know what that'll look like just yet. But we'll probably prepare a draft and then get it in front of the board, and we'll talk about it a little more at that time. Does that sound reasonable? Yeah, those to me. Cheryl,
Sure.
Heidi,
I'm good.
Della?
Yep.
Okay. So are we done then with the RFP? Randy says that maybe he can't get an agreement. But now the time frame might be after the August 8th meeting, which kind of reduces the emergency of it all, right? So do we still want to see a sample agreement, or what's the board's wish there? Any recommendations? Get one if you can. Well, I think he agreed that we at least request it and see what comes out of it.
Just add it to the list.
Agreed, Randy? Okay. So if that is the case, for sure, we're going to work on the indemnity clause.
Well, that might be their standard indemnification clause that they've been advised by their attorney to put
To
in
put
there.
in,
And so are you thinking you're gonna change that? I don't know if you're gonna change that or not. And if they refuse to change it, are you gonna take them away as an option for the planning commission to use. I
Yeah, what are you gonna do if they come
Think
back and
that's
say, we're
short-sighted.
not doing it? Is this where you spend the $500 and send it to the attorney and he's gonna tell you the same thing, maybe? I don't
It's
know.
gonna be another short shelf life contract with, likely not a super high dollar amount, and we're gonna be right back to where we are today, that, you know, we don't have a policy in place to do anything different than what we've been doing with those, which is kind of cumbersome. But, you know, so I think we wait and see what comes back.
Did anybody, Randy, did anybody tell you how long it would take for them to get something back to the PC? Oh, he can't. Can I ask him a question? Please? Can I ask Randy a question?
Board, Heidi would like to ask the planner a question. Are we good? Are we still in that bi-directional phase?
I don't care if she asks him a question.
Yeah, I don't have a problem.
Yeah, I think we were still in.
Do you think, how many days do you think somebody might, like, two of them I know already probably are like, we're too busy, but do you think somebody will be sending you something in the next 10 days? Right. Are they gonna be able to make that though, you think?
There's a timeline, for sure.
I guess all we can do is wait and find out.
People said they can't.
Okay, thank you.
Are we good, Heidi?
Yep.
All right. So moving on to 1B then, Planning Commission Master Plan Budget. Any thoughts?
Well, I'm going to be, you know, we are past the end of the first quarter, and I know there are some budget amendments that need to be brought. When I get finished posting all of the expenses, then I'll I think they're posted through. I can't remember now, to tell you the truth. But anyways, sometime in June, and so I'll just finish that up, and I'll likely have budget amendments for the August 8th meeting of things that are over budget. And I think that, you know, we didn't have at budget time, I don't remember that we had a clear picture of exactly how much the master plan
We didn't.
process
We didn't.
was going to cost. But we're learning as we go along. And so far, I think we haven't, you know, the last time the township had a master plan survey done, it was through McKenna and Associates. Wasn't that about $12,000, Della? I
It's
think,
between 10 and 15, I can't remember.
yeah, something like that. So,
Which
you know,
now
we're
means it's
probably gonna be in a similar neighborhood, or maybe a little more. I don't know. But whatever it is, I think we have to find it in the budget so that the planning commission can get their work done. And I'll be, like I say, I'll be bringing budget amendments for the first quarter of the August 8th meeting.
Right?
Cheryl, I think,
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. Doc.
I think you just said it best. I think, I know what we put in the budget at this point in time, when we did back in February and March. And as Heidi just validated, this thing has moved, it's changed, and I don't think it's an unreasonable request to get
No.
some idea of
Right.
what we're looking at here. I don't think
Right.
anybody should be offended by that. As time goes on and this thing moves, we're getting a better, clearer, narrower target on it.
Because we didn't
And
know,
there's-
when we did
and I
the
think-
budget, we didn't know.
And I think finding out, or at least getting some sense out there of what it looks like is going to be a lot more palatable than just a drop, you know, a drop of a number at a moment's notice. So.
Well,
I think if you could frame that out, and again,
Okay.
it doesn't have to be to the penny, but it should just be something to give us some expectation of where this is narrowing down.
Well, budget amendments deal with line items that have already gone over budget. and have caused the cost center, in other words, the department, to go over budget. That's not necessarily going to be the case with the planning commission. However, but I do think maybe the planning commission, and I think Rod's already pretty much done this. I don't know that I have it though. Maybe I do, and I have a lot of paperwork. You know, forecast what the, maybe to the best as possible, and Rod's not really on the planning commission anymore. So maybe somebody else on the planning commission forecast so that when we do a budget amendment, you know, when we do our budget amendments, maybe we can just make one for the planning commission that
That's
takes
what
into
we
account
were
what,
trying
but
to
that's not my, I don't gather those facts and figures for budget amendments. I have to be supplied with that information, you know, ahead of time to have it in my memo. But I just simply deal with accounts that are over and have taken the department over.
Heidi, did you have something to say?
Other than, we've already forecast that and our planning commission members are very.
What's the
Adamant.
number?
I'd have to go back and look.
Is that important right now?
Where did-
I mean,
I have
all I'm
a
trying to
question.
all I'm trying to tell you is that we're watching our budget. We're now able to plan better. And when we get a better focus, we'll gladly share it with you. But I don't think we were at that point yet.
Well, where did the $100,000, you've got in here, recent comments by some planning commission members led you to believe that the township could be spending $100,000 or more. Where
I
did you
believe
get
came
that?
From Rod. And so, I mean, if it's $200,000, okay,
But we're not gonna know that
But-
till.
Heidi,
Okay.
it's my turn. Okay,
Mhm.
I'm trying to respond to Ardella. So all I'm saying is that we had currently put about 60,000 in the budget, in this budget, if I remember correctly, Randy's fees, and then I think maybe another 30,000 in professional or something like that. So we've got about 60,000 in there. If it's going to be 100 or another 100, like Cheryl said, we would just like to have a forecast so we've got an idea. Rod said, well, maybe you can't spend money on a different project that you have budgeted for, so you can move the money from one account to another. Yep, that's right. So this statement is just to prepare the board, if nobody's heard this number, to prepare the board so we don't slow you guys down.
Well, maybe
That's what
the
this
next,
is all about. Now,
maybe the
Randy's
next-
shaking his head and Randy says, no, this thing isn't gonna cost $50,000. Okay, well, the two of them worked on the RFP. One says 50, one says 100. Doesn't matter to me, doesn't matter, okay? This is just a forecast, Ardella.
but it's a very large number forecast for just a master plan. We're not talking about just the planning commission budget as a whole for a year. We're talking about just one section of the planning commission's job for the year. So if there is a budget written out there somewhere, the forecasting, I would like it if the planning commission could share that physical piece of paperwork with me.
I think we're waiting for the.
Us.
next
With
phone.
us, right? With us.
Exactly, but
Yeah,
I
I'm
think
sorry.
we have
So-
to get through this next piece before we can give you a better copy of that. Until we get,
That's wrong, Heidi. That's
oh,
wrong.
okay.
Can I ask Mr. Melnick, do you have something you'd like to say to us? You look like you're out there.
I'm sorry, Randy, I didn't pick up on that.
That's all the squirming around.
He's gotta go like this on his face, you know.
So as I said earlier, though, you have spent $7,000 on my time for the master plan from October or September to now. That's about 9 months. Okay, you spent about $3,200 on Networks Northwest with the two things together, and $1,000 or so for paper and postage and that kind of stuff. That puts you at about $12,000 to where you are right now. As I said, you're about a third of the way done. A third to maybe a half here. I guess what's somewhat of a wild card in this thing is the public meetings and exactly what that generates. I mean, I would hate to say, well, you know what, we only programmed one meeting. So we're done, even though there was a lot of enthusiasm and excitement about that. I mean, I guess we can't control that part of that, but so far, there's been an awful lot of work done on this master plan. You've gotten very far down the road. I'm meeting this evening with one of the planning commission members to go over the small edits that he has on the material that's already out there. We're making major progress on this. You know, this $100,000 number, you can't just talk about a budget number without attaching it to some kind of work scope.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, what does you can't. I mean, it's just like a number here and work scope here. They got to be kicked together. So, you know, do you want to spend $100,000 out of master plan? I'd love it. I mean, I think I'm a planner. I think the whole world's a planning problem. So the more planning you get, the better. But you know, it's unrealistic for a township.
It
It
is,
is.
and 100,000 came out in a discussion that we were talking about. It could go 300,000, who knows? We were just throwing numbers out there. And then when we started to look what we had to do, we realized that we might be only at 50.
So I think you want the process to breathe a little bit. You want to be able to let it expand or contract as dictated by what we're finding. It's been 10 years since you did a master plan. And as I understand it, the public engagement in that 2015 master plan was almost nil. It was done 5 years or 7 years after the survey was done in 2009. So you didn't even have relevant survey information when you did that. So we're kind of in a whole new area here that we need to really, you know, honor what the residents are telling us in the survey, talk with them at public meetings, get this whole thing moved forward. We went through a couple of presentations with the
I was gonna
RMS.
say, could I have those presentations?
I have them.
to send
Great
to the
copies.
board?
Because
We talked about 3 meetings with the public.
possibly. And that's why the RFP said, give us the cost for extra workshops if we want to do that.
Right.
I don't know if we want to do that or not. I
Yeah.
mean, that's,
You don't know. It's a wild card.
it is.
Totally understand that. And
See, the thing.
all I'm trying to do is make sure the funding is there when you guys need it. That's what I'm trying to do here. It's not that I'm opposing $100,000. We just, I think we need to have an idea of where we're going. And
Okay.
we're already at 60. At the last meeting, Rod, you threw out a number that we were 12 or 15, the planning commission was 12 or 15% through its annual budget. Now, there was some controversy about what that included, so on and so forth, and that's fine. But that gives you a litmus test of where we're at in the 60,000 we've already set aside. Kind of correlates with what Randy has said so far, about $12,000. Okay, so you know, maybe the $100,000 is not inaccurate, but that's what I was told.
No, but when the public sees that in writing and they go, okay, they're gonna spend
Yeah.
$100,000.
That's alarming. I was alarmed.
I know, I was explaining it like 4 people. I'm like, ooh, it's a contract.
And just
But
to,
Rod,
just
isn't that
to,
our conversation? I mean, you shook your head, yes.
So it has been spent. Traverse City spending that and more
And-
but
probably.
that's
on there.
Traverse City.
That's Traverse City.
That's not
There are
Williamsburg.
50,000 people. over
And
there.
Rod, what was your specific interest in the planning commission? Were you the one doing the budget?
Yes.
Okay, so the guy doing the budget tells me $100,000. Do I automatically think, no, he means 50?
No, I get
No.
what you're saying, Brad.
No, I think he asked more questions.
Well, it
about that.
sounds like that information is forthcoming and that's all we need to know.
I will say one last thing. You talked about the public outreach for the last master plan. There's a difference between what you're talking about doing by hiring it out and getting a much different result than when we tried to do it in-house ourselves. We didn't get people coming in. We didn't get the response.
Well, you have 2 things this time. You have me as a professional planner who's done these kind of workshops many times. And you have another partner that's going to help us do that because we need some horsepower to get that done, to have it done well. And that's the last thing I think you want is to have a public workshop and have it be poorly organized.
For all or.
And turn it into a crazy shouting match. You've got to organize this. You've got to present the issues in a way that is constructive. And that takes a lot of preparation and that's what we're intend to do. You want to walk away from this with everyone having feel like they contributed. And then, as I said in the previous things, you want to be able to take people's responses and put that into the master plan itself in the appendix. So people's comments are heard and reflected.
That's why it's so important that the surveys are done by a third party that's non-biased.
And that was another thing that came forward here too, is the sense that there may be some that think that if it's done completely in-house, that there's some reason to be suspect.
So.
You know, I mean, it's,
Part to do it.
so we have a third party helping us. We eliminate that. We say, look, we've had Networks Northwest help us with the survey. Maybe they help us with the workshop, maybe not, I don't know. But there's another entity here to,
I think if you guys watch these, I'm gonna get the presentation from Randy and I'm gonna send it to you. I think if you watch the presentation, a lot of this would get stayed on the railroad track, not in a different context.
I don't think we're on a different context. I think that, well, at any rate, so as far as the budget question, Randy's given us a different expectation. Potentially, we're about 12,000 into it so far this year. He thinks we could be up to a third, maybe a half the way through it. So we're still in the $60,000 range that we were kind of expecting. Is that a good enough forecast for the board? Or do we really want something in writing? I guess we can include that statement in the minutes.
We need something in writing
Okay.
from the planning commission. It can be one page that just forecasts the master plan expenses. I think that's all we need.
And keeping in mind that things can change. That.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
I
in the
mean,
future, things can
it's
change.
gonna be a forecast, and that's the same thing we do every year when we do the entire township budget. All of those numbers are a guess. Some of those numbers change, some of that money gets spent, some of that money doesn't get spent, some projects get done, some projects don't get done. It's all it's all a guess, a best guess. So
Okay,
we
educated
all know
guess.
that. We all know
It's a
that.
sweat.
We're not gonna hold them to the minute penny on things. We just need to know what kind of do they expect in the way of expenses, master plan expenses for the rest of this fiscal year. That's what I'd ask for.
Why do we have such feedback?
Lois is on.
Oh,
So Cheryl made an important notation there, just to make sure everybody picked up on it. She said fiscal year. So that would take us through March 31 of 2024. Okay. All good?
Yep.
Okay. Board, are we all good with the budget then? When do you want to see that? Within the next 60 days? Does that give them enough time?
Yeah, I think so.
I'll make sure it's on the September agenda.
Rod, I think we're still in question and answer session. So, yeah, what's your question or statement, either one?
This is my last comment, so.
That's what you said 2 comments ago.
I know, I do that. But it gives me time to think, kind of saturate what you have all been talking about. I guess what I would ask that the board clearly state that this master plan update be one of your top priorities for this fiscal year. And that it be very clear that it is a top priority and we're not having to fight in the swamp in terms of the smaller things and we want to stay focused. You're asking a lot of hours from volunteers and there's a huge amount of commitment. I think I told somebody I've got 217 hours in the first 6.5 months on this committee. So times that by whatever number of people, you really need to come out, in my estimation, saying, dang it, this one is one we have to deliver. Whitewater Township needs it. And our public needs to know, the community needs to know that this is a top priority or the top priority of all the projects we're carrying forward. It has the most bang for the buck, clearly in my mind, just in the last 6 months. So that's all I ask is, you make it very clear to the PC and the ROS. Thank you.
Or do you want to react? You
Well,
wanna make
I
a
would just
statement,
say that-
Draft something.
I would just say on just behalf of myself, I'm not speaking for the board here. I would just say, at the May 17th meeting, I think, I had the sense that, the board members who were present there were all on board with the planning commission, going, getting this master plan done and getting it done, this master plan survey, and then these workshops and the formulation of the master plan, getting that done in some kind of timely fashion, and so as not to repeat the lengthy process that happened several years ago. And so I will personally say that as a board member, I'm committed to doing what we need to do to give the planning commission the tools they need and the resources they need to get this master plan done as soon as possible.
Anyone else?
I would like to remind all of you that we desperately need you to read those 4 chapters because some of you have lived here all your life. And like the planner stated, he's meeting with one resident today. I'm sure after I saw the documentation that the resident had, because he did read the 4 chapters and he did come up with a lot of ideas. I'm asking you again, please take the time to read it. And maybe in September, you can come back with your comments of the master plan.
What's
If
in
it's
Sep-
on the agenda,
What's in
we
September?
will.
What's in September?
I'm gonna ask you again if you read it. That's what I'm gonna ask
Well,
again.
and
Every month, I'm gonna
and
ask.
what needs to happen is that it needs to be an agenda item. And then everyone will read it and they will have their comments. But just to say out of the
Oh.
blue, have you read it? And, all that I think is not productive. It's just not productive. Let's have an agenda item. If you want the board to give some preliminary comments on the first 4 chapters of the master plan, it needs to be an agenda item.
Okey-dokey.
And that's not a problem, right?
Shouldn't be a problem.
So again, I have a misunderstanding here. Yeah, I know, right? 15 minutes should have been done. But Heidi, I thought you were asking us on a personal level.
I am asking
To-
you on a personal level
to-
because we're asking all the residents on a personal level also to read it and send their comments in. But apparently not communicating well on that. So
Well, I'm not.
let's keep moving and I'll come up with
Well,
a
no,
better
I
plan.
would like
And
to,
I have a lot of duties and I'm not going to just read things just to read things so I can say, yes, I've read it. When it's time for us, when you want some input from the board on those 4 chapters, I think it becomes an agenda item and then we talk about it and give our input. You know, I don't go to planning commission meetings, because that's not appropriate for board members to be going to planning commission meetings, except for the board rep. And so, you know, I don't know if the master plan, you know, how many times are we gonna read it? If the master plan survey results, causes the one or more of those chapters to be tweaked in some way, then, you know, then we have to reread it. So, I'd rather read it, you know, closer to the time that,
Okey
and,
dokey.
and I don't know why you're bowing your head and making
Because
this
I would
rather
hope by now you
condescending.
had read the 4 chapters.
No, I
there.
haven't, Heidi, and when it's an agenda item, I will. With the board deals with things through agenda items, okay? And we can't comment on it back and forth in email anyways, because that is a violation of the Open Meetings Act. So it needs to be done at a board meeting.
Okey dokey.
Just to clarify your statement, Heidi. You were asking us to do that on a personal level, not at the board level, right? And so, when it does come to the board level, I trust that the PC will make a
We'll have
request.
a party and we'll invite you.
Well, just like other requests that come from the PC, you know, when you guys think it's ready, then I trust it'll show up from Rachel or whomever. And then an agenda item will be made for the board. But to be clear, you were asking us to do it on a personal level.
Yep.
Okay. So,
And I'm embarrassed of my team that they can't even take the time to check
that's okay.
as a
That's
private
okay.
citizen.
Everyone-
I take offense to that.
Yeah, I do
Everyone's
too.
life is
I'm
busy.
embarrassed.
Yeah, I mean,
Point of order, point of order. Everyone's life is busy. And so, you know, that's unfair.
That is unfair.
That's unfair. So
How-
And it
how-
has
I would like to move on at this
Right.
point.
Yeah.
I'd like to
When
move
you have
on.
a Personal life, it has to
Please
do
do.
with our professional life.
that's right.
And I don't believe, even if I read all those chapters, I don't believe at this point, my opinion in inserting it into what the planning commission is doing is the right thing to do. You, on the other hand, are the board rep for the planning commission, so it is right for you to do it. But it's not
Okay,
for the
but
rest of us.
here's my problem, Ardella. I didn't grow up here. So this beginning of the master plan usually has a lot to do with what's happened in our community. And all I'm asking private citizens to do is go over it and see if we got it right. Because what if somebody gave us some misinformation? How would we know that?
You're just gonna
Okay.
take my word on it?
Read the Samuels Brothers book. Paraphrase out of it, copy,
Okay.
whatever you want to do. But that should cover the first 100 years or so.
Okay. This from people who, okay, never
Can
mind.
we move on?
I believe we are, Cheryl. So we are to discuss park and recreation relevant items. And under that heading, we have AED is the first thing.
So I'd like to make a motion to purchase an automated external defibrillator, AED, accessory components, and an ANSI compliant first aid kit to be installed at Township Park in the amount not to exceed $2,600, to which $2,330 of this expense is reimbursed via the July 14th, 2023 Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians 2% travel grant.
I'll second it.
Motion
For
made and
discussion.
seconded. Further discussion?
I have one question.
I do too.
Maybe I missed it, but, will there be training for the personnel on how to use this, or is it so self-explanatory?
Great question. Chief Flynn, in the memo, I stayed in here, Chief Flynn will do the training. He does it for his team.
Right.
And then we will just do it as, on an annual basis or as needed. It also has come to my attention that Andrew Butler was formerly certified. And so there may be some opportunity to get him recertified in this piece of equipment as
Okay.
well. So,
This is not the same, it's on the same subject, not the same piece of equipment. I recently purchased anti-choking device for adults and children. It comes in a kit. I spent $100 on it for two. It's for people to get things lodged in and the Heimlich is not working. It fits right over your face. So there's a child and an adult. It reminds me
It
of a
works.
plunger and it pulls that right back out. I watched a couple videos on it and somebody had actually a camera in their kitchen when their son came in and was choking. He had some bottle cap or something stuck in his throat. And I mean, that kid went down hard and they had it in their kitchen and they were able to bring him back. I mean, it was scary watching that. So it's something maybe that might be nice to have in our
In the
park
pa-
or
in the
something, at least in
campground.
your homes.
could you just email me a link or a piece of information where I could look at that and
Sure.
take that?
I mean, I purchased mine right off of Amazon.
Okay. I-
So,
Just like to know, see what you did, and that, I do agree. I mean, obviously, we're looking at the AED and upgrading the first aid kit there. That's
Sure.
most of the stuff in the first aid kit is outdated. And we just have to do a better job monitoring that at the beginning of every season to make sure we're current on those supplies. So
yeah, I'll send you the link
that'd
on
be
it.
great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
send it to all of us. I mean,
Yeah,
you never know when something like that happens, right?
I never thought about it,
Right.
I mean, I'm Don's lifesaver because I saved him. I had to do the Heimlich on him one time.
Not me.
My husband Don, I saved his life. He was turning purple and I saved his life.
Good for you, Dylan.
I don't
Do
wear
what
my
you do.
cape every day. so-
Can you, Don, can you make sure that the employees get a certificate for that?
I will talk with chief and see how that's.
Because then you can
There's
track
gotta be
who's
some
certified,
kind-
who's not, who needs reoccurring, who doesn't.
Yeah, we will be creating a spreadsheet of training out there, so we know. who
That's
is-
all I have.
Yeah.
Kind of like CPR.
Yep.
In fact, CPR usually is, I'd be surprised if he didn't put CPR and AED use in his training. Because one goes with the other.
Don, can I get an electronic copy of what you submitted to the
Yeah,
board
always, yeah.
for this item?
Yep.
And I'll put it with the records.
Yep.
Are we good on the AED?
Yep.
And I think there's a motion and a second out there. Roll call when ready.
Goss, yes,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
Pop,
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes,
Second item.
Yeah.
Okay, second item 2B, Girl Scout Free Library Community Project Request. Make a motion to approve Girl Scout Troop number 48745 request for permission to install a free library book house at High Prairie Park with the specific location to be determined by the Parks and Recreation Manager, who will also coordinate the installation date with their troop leader.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion. Roll call.
Bennett,
Yes,
Glenn,
Yes.
Goss, yes,
Yep.
Pop,
Yes. Electronic copy?
these
Yeah.
are so cool.
The sun lady just put one up. Sun farmer, I just put some in there for her.
Go to Traverse City neighborhoods, they're everywhere.
We're not, we do it where we take the books out. Go ahead.
The third item I'm bringing up is on the park electrical system. I don't have anything formal at this point. This is so board, the colleagues do not get surprised at some future date here. We've been experiencing some normal, and I stress the word normal, issues with GFI fixtures, pedestal fixtures, outlets failing. We've had 6 so far this year, according to Chief Flynn, who I've discussed this matter with out there. That's on average, we've been going through probably 4 to 6 a year. We're up to almost 6 already. And the bigger problem that we've had is on the 2 sub panels that are outside by the propane tank. But there's what I consider a north panel and a south panel. The south panel, there's a 200 amp breaker on that, and that's popped twice already this year. And according to Chief Flynn, that's a rarity. There's several things that could cause that. Could be load, could be the fact that it just is wearing out. Be that as it may, I have spoken to one engineering design firm, electrical engineering design firm, just to get a sense of what might entail to get an evaluation of the current park's electrical needs, the loads that are on there, and the fact that we have 3 50 amp services today. And the question is we did have numerous requests this year, just inquiries of people looking for 50 amp service and not having the ability to take them as patrons. I think we might be losing some revenue. So I just would like to kind of say out here that I'm looking at this and doing some exploratory. I will be bringing forth a board item in the near future as soon as I can collect some more data to have further discussion on this. And my concern is that also talking with the electrical design people, some of the service equipment is a year out in order. There's been a huge demand, and so we're faced with getting, if we were to do work on it, it could be a year to get some parts. Given what seems to be, at least perceptually, some increasing failures at the park, the GFIs and the pedestals, we can get those taken care of relatively easily and quickly. However, if we lose a main panel, that could be really difficult on the park's performance and revenue. So I think this is a project like to get out in front of. I think this through the course of to the end of the year, till we get to budget process, I think we can glean some information. And as we get into the budget process for 2024, I think we'd have a better handle on what we would maybe possibly need for an allocation of funds. So
So just so you know, both of those 200 amp breakers in there have been replaced during the time I was the park manager.
any sense of how long ago?
I'd have to go back and look, but one was probably maybe 6 years ago. This is a guess, don't hold me to it exactly.
Yep.
One was probably 3 years ago, something like that. One was done on an emergency basis when it went down. If you don't have the fan on in the panel, there's a fan in there that's supposed to be on during the hot weather 24/7. Yes, the park's electrical system, as just about every campground in Michigan's electrical system is the old 30 amp doesn't get it anymore. People with their big campers and stuff with double air conditioner units and stuff like that, they need 50 amps. And we've only got 3 sites with 50 amps. And that was something that was, that we hadn't gotten to yet, but definitely there is a need for the electrical system in the park to be upgraded. But, you can go around and ask people. We used to put out flyers during the really bad heat. I can remember going up to a camper and big camper, and they got their air conditioning and they got their door open. And I walked up to it and I can just feel the cold air just pumping out the door, and asking people to reduce their electrical usage, turn up the thermostat a little bit so their air is not running as much. Until the campground can be. But once we replaced both breakers, we never had those breakers trip again. So that tells me that there's even more demand on the system now than there was, because, like I say, we never had those breakers trip again after they were, replaced. So
Would you happen to have archived any existing electrical drawings of the current?
I
setup?
think there's electrical drawings. Yeah, there's some drawings in here, some park drawings.
Is
Yeah,
that
I don't
something-
know.
is that
there
something you
might
can
be.
Direct me to find, or is it?
Well, I
something you could
can give
access
them
for
to you
me?
to look at.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I just get out the thing and you can look through them,
okay.
see what there is.
All right,
Yeah.
I'll just schedule.
And I believe there is a drawing of the electrical system
Okay.
in there.
All right,
Yeah,
awesome. I'll take a look then.
yeah.
Heidi, did you have something to say?
I was just gonna ask, what's the average lifespan of a breaker? I answered my own question.
Della, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I think Cheryl's hit on
Thank
a lot of it. With the bigger rigs out there, they do draw more ampage. And everybody seems to be getting bigger and the newer, again, has more bells and whistles, so they draw more.
Yeah,
The system is aging, like you said, you've replaced the, one 3 years and one 6 years ago. 200
Approximately.
amps, but if everybody's drawing 50 amps, that's a huge load on the. So the possibility of replacing all the 30 amp pedestals with 50 amp and upgrading those two breakers.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, the chief.
maybe we look at a complete system overhaul
Overall,
and plan for expansion if the park is ever to expand out, because there's more room to put more sites in.
And those are questions. Thank you. They're good questions. Think the ones Chief suggested that along those same lines, he's saying that because we have a single phase coming in, and he's suggesting, a dual or triple phase just to prep for future expansion.
Yeah.
So those I think would be types of things we would discuss at the board as add-ons type of, starting with what would be the upgrade, then what would be a future growth.
Maybe we
And
could
so-
look for grants too, Don,
Sure.
to cover the cost of this upgrade. It's a needed upgrade, but
Yeah.
also future expansion.
And remember that, the chief did bring up during budget time that pedestal replacement needed to be budgeted for. He
Yeah.
brought that up at one of our budget meetings.
But to be clear, pedestal replacement does not cause a breaker to trip. Especially.
Well, no, it's a separate issue, but I'm talking about the GFIs. We always used to have GFIs on hand. The chief was replacing some of those. They go down every year. GFIs they're supposed to be tested routinely. And there was a sheet out there, I think, that you log the testing of the GFIs on. Those have to be tested routinely, so you make sure that people have their electricity.
So we can look forward to something
So,
in the
yeah.
future.
Yeah, I'll bring this as a more formal board item as I kind of pull this together. I have calls out to 2 other engineering design firms. I'm trying to just round the bases with 2 or 3 to see what the consistency in the information and message that I'm getting. And so far, the first person I've talked to was extremely helpful and gave me a good foundation to ask some more questions of the other 2. So, but it's
is there a
need
ballpark
I-
figure? Is there a ballpark
I don't.
figure?
I don't have I'm not there yet. I'm just trying to understand the process.
No worries.
A 1 with zeros behind it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. you get
A lot of
that.
So-
comments, probably.
On the specific topic. Maybe we could have a spare 200 amp breaker in our midst.
I asked that, the difficulty in that is that, you have to go to the source. You cannot shut down 200 amp breaker. You've got to go kill the power at the box.
Yep,
Consumers has to come out and shut down the box.
Understood. But they're an emergency phone call away. Whereas the breaker might be 2 weeks away.
Oh, I see your point.
So
Yeah.
we won't be able to install it ourselves or anything like that. That's not the intention. the intention is to have the product
Yeah.
on hand.
Yeah.
For those people who need to be involved.
Yeah. And Chief has been the one that has been keeping some inventory out there. He apparently has some association or access to electrical wholesale house. So I will talk with him, and I'll take a look first to see if there isn't even one out there, and then if not, talk with Chief. And see
Yeah, it can't be that much.
Yeah, no,
Oh, I'll bet you it's $300-400 pretty.
Yeah, but we're not talking thousands
Yeah.
of dollars here, so.
And then the other comment or thought I have is depending on these drawings, might give us a date of when that underground service went in. I think Davis Electric did it, if I remember correctly, but that could be 40 years ago already.
Sure,
And
it's aging, we've known that.
an underground wire has a life expectancy. I don't know what it is. But in the early days, that was just direct burial stuff. It wasn't put in a conduit
Nope,
like they do today.
just throw in the grass. throw in
So,
the ground.
you know, rocks and roots and all of that degrade the insulation over time. And I think it's like 40 or 50 years that underground, they anticipate replacement.
Who knows, maybe someday Whitewater will be full hookup.
That'd be nice.
Then you need water.
Is there anything else at the board level, Don?
no, I just wanted to just let some people know what directionally I was headed on some of that.
Board comments or discussion?
I have one, now that the ROS lost a plan commission member, they need another plan commission member, and I was the only one that offered to step up. So I will be replacing Rod apparently on that committee.
And I guess to that point, I've got nobody in the queue for the planning commission. So if somebody has the recommendation that I can begin the interview process with, I'd greatly appreciate a name.
Did you go back and look at old apps by any chance?
Several. But the board turned at least 2 down previously. All right, no one in the township hall for public comment, so is there anyone out in Zoom land wishing to make a public comment? Hello, Connie.
Good afternoon. I find it very disconcerting that money is being spent on the very important master plan. And no one on the board has found it important to look over these 4 chapters. Although my husband Frank and I think it was brilliantly written, I had hopes that the board would have looked at it already. The planner, Mr. Melnick, and the planning commission are working hard on this. I promise when you look at it, you will be impressed and pleased at money well spent. It's always a good feeling too, to know that the money that you are spending, the checks that you are writing, are doing such an amazing job. It would also give you an opportunity to compliment the planner and the PC on their exceptional work. It's always nice to hear feedback and encouragement for a job well done when they're working so hard. So in closing, I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate and praise Mr. Melnick and the entire PC. Well done, team. Well done. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to make a public comment? Motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Carol, there were 7 on Zoom.
There was one on at 9 o'clock. That is the time at which we take the number, as
Okay.
everyone else. In the township, at the board. So that's why I'm logging on to Zoom at 9.
Okay.
Anyways, yep. We have a motion and a vote, motion and a second.
Roll call when ready.
Pop,
Yes.
Goss, yes, Valmir,
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes.
Glenn.
Yes.